there's always like these conventions, like these coaches conventions, and everyone rolls up and you're always just kind of looking for that next gig. And everyone's always talking. Someone's vouching for this dude. Hey, take care of my guy. I just lost my gig. Make sure he gets taken care of. Like, that's just kind of how the business is. And this is insulting, and I don't mean to make it sound insulting, but it's almost like recycling a lot of the same names. And that's why when you see like different programs get different staffs, like this is how it all plays out.
Well, welcome back to Nick and Nigel. Get you ready for the weekend of college football. Once again, brought to you on Samsung Connected TV's channel 2392, also on Amazon Freevee. You can also catch us on the Pac-12's YouTube page. And as always, we are brought to you by our friends at Clodfelter's Pub, 1501 Northwest Monroe Street, Avenue in Corvallis, Oregon, the place to watch the game and hang out afterwards, and our friends at MBI Management for exceptional luxury living in the Mid-Willamette Valley. Coach, what's going on, Coach? Coach Aliotti, what's happening, man?
Good morning, Nigel. Hope this Zoom call finds you and your family doing well.
We're doing all right, man. We're doing all right. Well, you know who else is doing all right? The Cougs. The Cougs are keeping it rolling, Coach. They head down to San Diego. Our boy Alex Brink got in a round over at what's the famous? Why am I spacing right now? I almost said Tristing Tree, and I'm like, come on, bro, what's wrong with me? That's in Corvallis. What's the famous golf course out there near San Diego? Come on, man. PGA.
Mahala?
What's that?
Mahala?
No, it starts with a T. That's why I was spacing about Tristing Tree. But fine, there we go. Our boy Alex with the assist. So anyway. Hey, Alex Brink gets in a little round at Torrey Pines, and I'm not gonna lie, the Cougs looked like they were also with him taking a round there at Torrey Pines, hanging out. Looked a little discombobulated early, but our boy John Mateer comes through, 4 touchdowns, went 19 of 27 passing for 257 yards, and another 42 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns again as the Cougs beat the Aztecs 29-26 in San Diego. Coach, what were your thoughts about the Cougs this week?
Well, first of all, Mateer continues to do his thing, as you mentioned. I think by the end of this year, Mateer will be the leading quarterback rusher in the history of Washington State football.
Already is, Coach.
Oh, really? He is for a season, huh?
Yeah, done. Check that box.
Check that box. Well, then he'll get the touchdown record. I know he doesn't have that one yet, rushing by a quarterback. He just continues to do his thing. My thoughts on the game. Couldn't agree with you more. Washington State, to me, looked a little bit slower and sleepwalking in the first 3 quarters of that game. It really did. It was the first time this year, even in their loss against Boise, where I thought they weren't in sync. They just, something looked discombobulated. And I really wasn't impressed with them this weekend, but I was impressed with the fact that for 3 weeks now, they've come back, not consecutively, but they've come back and won in the fourth quarter. So that's an impressive thing to do.
No question, Coach. I mean, right now the Cougs 7-1 on the season, and hey, I think all fans, myself included, because I'm not even a closet Coug fan anymore. As I've been called out for my Go Cougs at the end of my interviews when I get a chance to talk to Coach Dicker, which I say proudly. I got no problem with it. But I mean, the Cougs were down. We're talking in the late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. They were down 26-14 to the Aztecs. There was a lot of worry. The Aztecs had the ball. They were moving the football again, looking like they're going to go up 2 scores again. And then on 3rd and 14, big interception. And I'm going to butcher my man's name like I always do, but Tariq Ukda with the big interception that basically turned things around for the Cougs. And instead of being down 2 scores, huge swing. As, again, they were down by 5. Worst case scenario looked like San Diego State was going to kick a field goal. Instead, gets the interception. They turn around, go down the field, score, puts them up 29-26. And that was really all she wrote when it came down to the Cougs taking care of business in San Diego. So, again, this team has just continued to find ways to win. And this was one of those games where it all came together a little bit. It was messy. But John Mateer, who's led them the entire season, and the offense kind of came alive, but it really was led by the defense making a huge play, Coach.
Absolutely. That saved the game, so to speak, that play where they could have got down by more than 2 scores had San Diego State kicked the field goal. But Washington State, we're both Washington State fans. I mean, I'm going to say I'm pulling for Washington State and I'm pulling for Oregon State. But we're talking about Washington State. Washington State is the favorite in the remainder of their games. They can go 11-1. And if they go 11-1, then we'll see how everything shakes out for the CFP. So all they got to do is beat the team they play every weekend. They have a bye to rest up. Washington State has a lot of good things in front of them.
Well, hey, Coach, this week they finally broke the top 25. I was wondering what was taking so long. At 7-1, they break the top 25. They're ranked number 22. Here's the issue, and we're going to keep it real on the show. We got to keep it real, Coach, right?
Got to clip it real, and I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say? What am I going to say?
About Boise State.
Well, if Boise, I don't think Boise is necessarily a huge problem for them. Though, again, Boise it's one thing to lose to Boise. It's another thing to lose by 21 to Boise the way they did. The issue is when you look at their schedule, right? Portland State beat them by 40. They beat Texas Tech, and they took Texas Tech behind the woodshed. And then they go to Seattle and beat Washington in Seattle. The problem is Texas Tech and Washington have lost games as the season has worn on. I mean, think about this. Had Washington done what they should have done and taken care of Rutgers, right? And then they go beat Michigan, right? And then not lay an egg, at Indiana or Iowa, you're talking about a 6-1 team that you beat that would be ranked high. That helps Washington State with their resume in terms of, hey, man, let us in the CFP. Same with Texas Tech. Texas Tech at one point was 5-1, but then you look at they get taken behind the woodshed by Baylor and then find a way to lose to Schmelsby's Horny Toads at TCU by a point, and now that win doesn't look as good. Because look, as much as we love the 12-team playoff and the fact that it's gotten rid of a lot of this, how these beauty contests, well, how did you win and all those other things. The fact of the matter is you still need resume building unless you're a conference champion. And the way the thing's laid out for this season for the Pac-12, conference championships don't matter for the Pac-12 this year. It will in 2 years, but right now it doesn't. You got to have those style points, and you need those other teams to win. That's why I keep saying, if you're a true Crimson Coug fan, you have to root for Washington. You have to root for Texas Tech. I know it hurts you to root for Washington, especially everything that went down in the last year and a half, but you have to root for them to win because you need to be able to say we beat a team that look how good they are. Not a team that is struggling to win games and ends the season with 4 or 5 wins. You want a team that had 7, 8, 9 wins and say that you beat them. And that's going to be the issue for Wazoo as this thing continues to carry on. So we'll see how that stuff shakes out. But again, root for Texas Tech, root for Washington if you're a Washington State fan, because you need those wins to look good as you continue to matriculate through this season. You're right, they'll be favored, but they got another big one this weekend coming up. Hey, speaking of a big one coming up this weekend, our boys in Corvallis, it's been the struggle bus. 3 straight losses. They got a San Jose State team that took the Cougs to the brink, double overtime, all that stuff. They go down to Cal, and it was a bad look. Now, I know this team has been beat up. I think there's something like 17 of the top of the 2 deep is out. They are struggling just to suit up and get bodies on the field, Coach. But, I mean, it has been a struggle for the Beavs.
Yeah, Oregon State, we know about the injuries, and it's unfortunate. You got to play with what you got. But they did not look very good, particularly they didn't look good on any side of the ball, but on defense, they could not stop a Cal team that has really struggled to score 3 touchdowns against anybody. So Cal was able to do whatever they wanted. Oregon State couldn't get much done on defense. Then on offense, they also struggled. And Oregon State, we've talked about this, Nigel. Oregon State recipe for success is ball control, run the ball, and play good defense. Well, they didn't run the ball. It was their lowest total all year. I think Hankerson had something like 42 yards. And they didn't play good defense, so therefore they didn't have ball control. And they're not built to come from behind because they just don't have, in my opinion, a quarterback that they feel good about not only running the offense they want to run, but throwing the ball down the field. They don't have that guy.
Yeah. Were you surprised? Were you as surprised as I was that, look, Giovanni McCoy has struggled, right, lately. I mean, he was on fire early in the season, and then obviously against Nevada, the 4 interceptions did not help. And then, you know, I thought he played a pretty decent game, even though it came out with a loss at home. And I don't know why right now my mind is blanking, but, you know, at one point he was 2 of 5 for 5 yards or something like that in this game, and then he got pulled. I'm sorry, against UNLV. He didn't do great passing the ball, but running the ball, he was phenomenal. You know, a passing against UNLV was 21 of 37, 231 yards. Again, not a bad day at the office, you know, an average day. But running the ball, he was amazing. 16 carries for 81 yards, had a 71-yarder that was a highlight reel special, kept him in the game. Obviously, things didn't work out at the end. But to me, I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on pulling him early for Ben Gulbranson.
Yeah, you know, and you got to trust those coaches. Here's what I think happened, Nigel. I think they were behind by 4 scores. I think they think Gulbranson's a better thrower, and they were going to throw the ball. That's what I'm thinking. If they were going to throw the ball, that's thought number 1. Or thought number 2 was, hey, we're out of this thing. Let's see what we have behind Giovanni McCoy, and let's get Gulbranson some snaps. So those are the only 2 things I could think of. My first thought is I think they need to throw the ball a bunch, and Gulbranson gives them that best opportunity to come from behind.
Yeah, I get that, Coach. That does make sense. Well, look, hopefully they can bounce back. They've got San Jose State again coming into town. And it's gonna be a battle to pull one out against Sparty. So we'll see how the Beavs take care of business. Speaking of taking care of business, we got our guy, the Yammer. That's right, Coach. Hey, all those times you, me, him sitting in the studio having fun. Mike Yam joins us next on the Nick and Nigel Show. You want to stick around for this conversation? It's gonna be goofy. It's gonna be fun, and we're gonna get into it. Yeah, Mike Yam joined us on Nick and Nigel. Coming up next. Well, welcome back to the second segment of Nick and Nigel. Once again, brought to you by our friends at MDI Management and Clodfelter's Pub. Gotta get to my guy. Man, my TV career, my all this media stuff started sitting at a desk with my guy, Mike Yam, in the first audition I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And my guys just sitting there like, we're cracking jokes, makes me feel super comfortable. I was like, yo, like, don't even worry about it. Let's be honest. If it doesn't work out, just go back and coach. And 10 years later, love to have my guy on the show. Mike Yam joined us on Nick and Nigel. Yammer, what's up, baby?
I mean, it's first of all, it's always good to get an invite. Number 1. Number 2, I miss Coach Aliotti because he always checks in, and I always get like, "Hey, Yammer, you know, I'm smashing ducks," or how's your, you know, how's the head, how's the melon doing? So, but it's always good to be with you, man. And when I do flash back to that audition, I actually remember having this conversation about maybe doing the coaching thing. I said, man, you know, here's the best part about doing media: you can say something and you can be wrong, and it's all good. We just kind of forget about it and move on. But look, I think I'm already derailing this, and I apologize.
Let's go.
But
hey, derail, off rail. We don't even need to get back on the rails. We can take this wherever we want to go.
Well, so I don't know if you remember this. Because I actually don't. When you auditioned, I remember getting a call from what I would consider like my West Coast dad in Rick Neuheisel, who, when we launched Pac-12 Network, always took care of me. He and his wife Sue were amazing. Hey, you going on the holidays, the whole thing. And I'm from the East Coast, so they were just so good to me. And then Rick obviously left the network and went to CBS, where he's still working now. And I remember him calling me and saying, "Hey, Nigel Burton's going to come in for an audition. Take care of my guy." I don't even know how you guys even know each other.
Well, first of all, coaching is a small circle, right?
Yeah.
So, man, I met Rick. So I was playing at UW, played so well, got my coach fired. And so Rick got hired as a new head coach at Washington the year after I left. But, all my guys were still there. The younger guys were still playing for him. And, just kind of met him a couple times. Well, I want to say I was at PSU, and a job came open at UW. And I don't know, I can't even remember. Maybe it was I think it was a receiver's job. I don't even think it wasn't even a DB job. So Rick flies me out up to Seattle, and I sit down with the offensive staff and I interview, and I don't get the job. And to be honest with you, it wasn't really my wheelhouse, and things, because I was still young and coaching, trying to figure it out. Fast forward, I end up at Oregon State. This is 6-7 years later. This is a great story. This is good. So, and I don't think Rick knows this. So if Rick ever sees this,
yeah,
we got to send this link to Rick. So fast forward, I'm at Oregon State. I end up getting I'm up for the University of Nevada D coordinator job, and I get offered the job. Meanwhile, Dwayne Walker had taken over at UCLA as the as the D coordinator for Rick when Rick was at UCLA. So Rick is listen, all these guys on defense, a lot of them are D-Walk's guys. I want to bring in one of my guys in case D-Walk leaves, right? Because he's been up for some head jobs, and I know, so I need a guy who can kind of be one of my guys on the defensive side. So I get a call hey, really love for you to come in and interview for the defensive back job at UCLA. But I'd already taken the Nevada, or I was going to take the Nevada job. Well, what Rick didn't know was D-Walk was basically a mentor of mine. So D-Walk is Nige, I think Rick thinks you're his guy. He don't know that you're really my guy. so I'm hey, D-Walk, I appreciate it, but I think I got to do this Nevada thing. I got to be a DC.
Yeah.
I'm at a recruiting visit at Nevada. It's my first weekend there. Family hasn't moved. D-Walk calls me again. He's Nige, Rick is not letting this go. He wants to know what it's going to take for you to leave Nevada and come to UCLA. And I'm just oh my gosh, man. I'm listen, I want to be a DC. I don't know what's going to happen. And D-Walk's listen, if I get a job, Rick's going to look to hire you to be the DC if I leave. But I kept thinking, man, I got a bird in the hand, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
I don't know how it works out. I decided to stay in Nevada. The next year, D-Walk leaves and gets a head job at New Mexico State. And I could have been the DC for Rick at UCLA.
Wow.
Whatever. Who knows? But yeah, that's how all that kind of, and then, we stayed in touch, and Rick was always awesome with me, man. When I was up for my head job at Portland State, Rick was one of the first calls I made. And I was hey, help me figure this out. What should I be looking for? What do I got to make sure I don't do? And Rick just laid everything out for me. So you're absolutely right, man. Rick is
the best.
Yeah, no doubt.
The best. But kind of a crazy story, because I think from a fan perspective, people don't realize, I think in theory you get that the coaching fraternity is really small, but everyone knows each other. And that's why when you see coaching movement and a guy, loses his job as the head coach, the staff kind of moves on. And we saw this, and look, I know we focus in on, Pac-12 stuff and Oregon State. Jonathan Smith is a really good example of this, right? Trent Bray, I get was his guys as DC, and he stays there to run that program because he gets elevated, right? But you saw Jonathan take a good amount of his guys in Corvallis with him to Michigan State. This is just kind of how it goes. And I've heard this, from the basketball side of things. And I know this happens on the football side, but I haven't had this conversation with someone. You could fill in the blanks. But, there's always these conventions, these coaches conventions. And everyone rolls up, and you're always just kind of looking for that next gig. And everyone's always talking. Someone's vouching for this dude. Hey, take care of my guy. I just lost my gig. Make sure he gets taken care of. That's just kind of how the business is. And this is insulting, and I don't mean to make it sound insulting, but it's almost like recycling a lot of the same names. And that's why when you see like different programs get different staffs, like this is how it all plays out.
I do. Hey, stick around. Last segment of Nick and Nigel. We'll see what the heck coach is doing, if he's smashing ducks or whatever the hell coach is doing. We'll see you soon.